let's take a look at shading. So we're going to be using Arnold. So we need to be using Arnold specific lights and the Arnold shading system. So firstly, let's drop a light. Once you have installed Arnold, you should get Arnold options when you press tab. Also, when you select your node in the parameters, you'll get these Arnold tabs for, in this case, for things like motion blur. Same in the camera, you've got an Arnold tab there. Also at the top, next to file and edit and so forth, you've got an Arnold tab there with different options. So let's quickly drop a light. So I go to, sorry, not type light, tab Arnold and Arnold light. And just drop that and we can see a change. Yeah, that'll be pretty dark, so I'll just put the intensity up to 5 for now. That we'll work on that later. It's just so we can see something in the render. And then for all of our materials, we go to a different context. So here we're in OBJ, we need to go to matte. And here again, if we press tab and start typing Arnold, we'll get Arnold Material Builder. And let's give this a better name. We'll begin with just doing coffee bean 1. So remember, we've got 3 different coffee beans. We'll just work on one at a time. So I'll call this coffee underscore bean underscore 1. And again, I want to dive inside here to start building my material. So once I go inside, this again is a Vex builder. So really we're working on Vex code here, but we don't have to actually type any code. So the material we need is the standard surface. It's the kind of standard material, the typical Arnold material. Okay, so we drop the standard surface. If you click on these lines, we'll open out the node and you can see all the inputs there. It's quite a lot, but you know, we don't need, obviously we don't need to work on all of them to get something good. So we're going to connect the shader to the surface and start to import our textures. So to import a texture, we press tab, type image. Again, the 3 lines to open out the inputs and outputs. In the image, let's go to the File Explorer, and in HIP, go to Text for Textures, and find the Coffee Bean 1 RGB, which is our color information. Click Accept on that. Connect RGB to base color. Now we have a connection of, we've got the color. We're not going to see it here in the viewport. It will only show in the render. What I'm going to do to save time, Alt click and drag. We get a copy. Obviously we don't need the color information twice. So go back here and we want the spec. Coffee Bean 1 spec. Accept. And connect that to our specular roughness. So that's our roughness information. One thing with Arnold, if you notice, if you go here into the File Explorer now, if I delete show files matching, okay, so it's only going to show me files with these names. If I delete that, should show me, yeah. So here you can see Coffee Bean 1 RGB.tx. So Arnold uses these textures, and when you connect a PNG or a JPEG or something else, it will automatically create a .tx file, and that's what it will actually use. So if you notice them in your directory after, then don't worry, it's correct. Okay, so here we've got the specular connected to roughness. What else do we need? Some height information. So if I take again, copy this image node, go to, let's take the displacement. Okay, for this to work, I found we need to use a bump 2D. Okay, connect the RGB to the map. And then we're going to connect this to geometry here, okay, to the normal. There we go. And just because I know the height, we're going to need to drop that down a lot, so I'll drop it 0.00. Let's try just 0.001 for now, see how that looks. Because I think by default a height of 1 will be crazy, it'll just kind of explode. Okay, so that's the basic setup for connecting the maps. That should work for us fine. We'll come back and adjust parameters here, but we'll just leave that to make sure it's working. Let's see, so we've only got Coffee Bean 1 there. So if I click Alt click and drag, and automatically it'll renumber that because I've copied it to Coffee Bean 2, which is great. And same again, and I'll get Coffee Bean 3. But we need to change the textures inside. So if I dive inside Coffee Bean 2 and then just go to each node and change the 1 to a 2. See, this way it's nice and quick, simple as that. That's why it's important to, you know, get a good naming convention for your textures and your geometry. Same for number 3. Dive inside, change it to 3, 3, and 3 there. Okay, so we've got our materials created. We've got a light, but we need to attach the materials to the geometry. So if we go back here, if you remember, if you press I, we've got these 3 groups, so we can use these groups to attach the material. If you've only got one object in your, not one object, but one model in here, what you can also do is in your geo node, in render, you can attach the material there. But as we've got 3 different models, we need to use a material node. Drop that down, visualize that, group, and then we can see we've got our groups here, Coffee Bean 1, and then we need to connect that to the material. So we go here, find the context, matte, Coffee Bean 1, connect. Same with number 2, Coffee Bean 2, matte context, Coffee Bean 2, and finally with number 3, Coffee Bean 3, Coffee Bean 3. Great, that should be all we need. Good practice also to drop a null. A null doesn't do anything, it doesn't change the information in any way. It's just a way of keeping organized and tidy. So if I drop it's very common for people to, at the end of your work, drop a null, call it out. Okay, it's a good thing. If you want to refer to the end of this process, you know that it will be called out, and you know that's the end. You don't want to be guessing with the name of any of these. All right, so that should be all we need. Let's go to out. Maybe if we go to a later frame, like there. Okay, so now I've just gone into my out context, which is where we render in Houdini. I'm going to press tab. For some reason it's not in the Arnold drop down there, the Arnold options. Go to render, Arnold, and you'll find your render ROP, okay, what we use to configure our render settings. Right. We won't do anything there for the moment. If we go to our render view to look at the render, click on that. This is an old a test I was doing earlier without textures, and we've got our here the Arnold ROP selected. We've only got one, so there's only one option. The ROP camera is whatever you've got here, cam 1. We've only got one camera also, so that's perfect. And let's click render and see what we get. And there we go. So obviously not the most beautiful render for the moment, but we can see that everything's working. We've got color, we've got variations in roughness and the height as well. Maybe so that we can see it better, if we go back to OBJ, OBJ context, select the light and change this to a sky dome. Oh, that's too bright. Change the brightness down to 2 or something. Maybe 1. Could just help us see what's going on. Okay, so sky dome light. If I go back to my scene view, and you can see it generates a sphere to connect your HDR. If you don't want the white background, what you can do, if you select the light, go to contribution, and then you can put camera to 0, so that will just make the light itself invisible to the render camera. There we go.